Coming this fall from SJS Direct, Easting the Sands of Time. It's action, adventure, and romance in ancient Egypt in this fantasy flashback Easting series adventure. Pre-order Easting the Sands of Time today on Amazon.com. Many writers, film producers, TV producers, and screenwriters are oftentimes looking to write stories featuring strong heroines. And oftentimes, many people aren't satisfied with stories featuring strong heroines because they just don't tell the same compelling story as the hero's journey, which features male characters. And the reason why many stories featuring strong heroines just don't resonate with readers has to do with the way men see women and the way women see women as well. Now, the reason why a lot of men have a hard time writing strong heroines is because many men look to protect women. It's in a man's nature to try to protect women, and oftentimes many male writers get emotionally attached to their heroines, and they look for ways to prevent the heroine from going through any sort of painful tragedy, overcoming any sort of obstacle, or taking on some sort of serious loss that would lead to their further character development or enable them to further move forward in a character transformation arc. And this is why many stories that feature heroines that are oftentimes written by men just don't resonate with the reader, because the writers often look for somebody else to do the work for them, like a male supporting character, and they don't let the heroine go through the hardship, the challenges, or take on the tragedies or the losses that would enable them to be the hero who overcomes and triumphs in the end. Because when it comes down to a lot of male writers, again, they get emotionally attached to the female characters, and because they get emotionally attached to the heroines, that's why they make efforts to prevent them from going through these character transformation arcs, because they figure if they can have somebody else do the work for them, then the heroine won't get hurt. But when the reader reads that story, they don't see anything in that character that makes them identifiable to them, relate to them, or endear them to them, because you have this other character, that's usually this male character, doing things for them, and that prevents the character from growing and prevents us from connecting with their story. Now, a lot of women, when they write heroines, they have a hard time writing heroines because oftentimes it's their frame of reference that prevents them from being able to write strong heroines. Now, when it comes down to women, they believe that they can write heroes like men. Unfortunately, because most women get their needs met by men, their frame of reference as related to what makes a strong woman is completely different than that of a man. Because when it comes down to women, they believe that they can get things from men, and that's what makes them strong, because they got it from a man. But that's what really prevents us from connecting with their hero's journey, because when it comes down to their perspective of heroines, somebody else is doing things for them. And because this character never had to overcome obstacles, face conflict, or deal with tragedy or loss, that's what prevents us from connecting with that character in the same way we connect with male characters who go through the hero's journey. Because when it comes down to many women, they'll write this heroine, but the heroine, again, she's coming from a very passive perspective, whereas the hero's journey from the male perspective is oftentimes very active. And that's one of the things that was a big problem as related to writing strong heroines. Now, an example of what I saw as related to the problems as related to strong heroines was what I saw in Iron Fist Season 2. Now, Netflix's Iron Fist Season 2 had this Colleen Wing character, and she had all the fundamental flaws of what they try to do with strong heroines. She never had to go through any sort of challenge, any sort of obstacle, or any sort of loss, but Danny Rand goes out of his way to give her the Iron Fist. And she gets this Iron Fist without actually having to earn it. So that's how her heroine's journey just doesn't work, because she's getting power from a man without having to go through any sort of struggle. And that doesn't make for a strong heroine. And this is one of the problems I have with a lot of these stories featuring strong heroines, because good stories about strong heroines like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Xena Warrior Princess, those series featured heroines who went through character transformation arcs. They had to deal with conflict, they had to deal with struggle, they had to deal with loss. And because those characters had to deal with the hero's journey in the same way that a man went through, that's why those characters resonated with viewers over the years, because those characters went through full character transformation arcs. They went on a hero's journey, and because they went on the hero's journey, this is what made these characters ones people wanted to connect with, people wanted to watch every week, and people wanted to follow from story to story. And I see this big campaign by many to push strong heroines, but the big problem with this plan to push strong heroines is they don't give them strong, compelling stories. And because they don't give them these strong, compelling stories, we don't get to see these characters go through the challenges that guys like Luke Skywalker go through. Now, as a writer of strong heroines, I understand that I have to put these women through the same challenges that men go through. They have to suffer the same tragedies. They have to suffer the same losses, because that's what's going to make them endearing to readers, and that's what's going to make readers relate to them, because with each challenge they take on, with each obstacle they overcome, with each personal issue they deal with, these are things that allow the reader or the viewer to come in and say, that person is like me, that person is having my experiences, that person is having my problems, and I have to see, and I see that person going through these things, and I see a solution for my problems in this character. And when you see a woman getting something from a man in a story, it's like a cop out, because it shows that this woman did not work for anything, she did not earn anything, and she just had somebody give it to her. And that's not something that works on a hero's journey. A hero's journey, again, is all about the hero earning what they accomplish. That's part of the payoff for the reader. And I know about how to write that because I've written it several times in the first ISIS back in 2000, that I published in 2002. But I really started to really get good at it with the E-Steam series and the Spinsterella trilogy, because with the E-Steam series, I show how this E-Steam character goes from a demon to someone who has given her life to Christ, and as she is growing in her relationship with Christ, she is growing and changing and going on this heroine's journey as she runs into obstacles, as she runs into problems, and as she deals with losses and tragedies over the course of from starting with the temptation of John Haynes all the way up to E-Steam Ascension, where we see her go from this demon to someone who manages to break Lucifer's yoke off her. And that's how we see the character transformation arc in this character, because she's working towards earning her redemption and working towards developing her relationship with Christ. And with the Matilda Crowley character in the Spinsterella trilogy, what I wanted to show was how in this girl who was a biracial nerd grew into a woman into the goth subculture, and I wanted to show how she developed confidence over time, how she overcame obstacles, and how she, especially in the first novel, Spellbound, I show how this character went from this biracial nerd to this goth woman in this part of the goth subculture, and I show her character transformation arc over time, how she builds this confidence, how she develops the self-esteem, and she does that by um, embracing who she really is and embracing what she feels comfortable about herself. And again, the heroine's journey is something that a lot of writers they have a hard time writing about because again, when it comes down to a lot of writers, they always base their thing either on protecting women, which a lot of men try to do, or they try to, as women, try to look for guys to do things for them. But in order for a heroine to really transform, a writer has to put some distance between themselves and the character and let that character go through those hardships. And that can be a bit of a challenge for a lot of writers because I remember in Spellbound, I had the scene where Matilda had to deal with her brother Brody being shot. And when I first wrote that scene, I originally did it where no one got shot, but I said it had no emotional resonance, it had no impact, and I had to let the character go through that pain. And that's something that many writers they're afraid to do, but it's all about giving the reader a story that resonates with them because if it wasn't for that scene in Spellbound, we wouldn't have the catalyst to drive the Matilda Crowley character to discover the goth subculture or start her transformation process into the Black Widow later in Spellbound. So, when it comes down to a lot of writers, you have to really put your feelings aside. When it comes down to heroines, let them go on the heroine's journey. Let them go through the pain. Let them go through the losses. Let them go through the tragedy because it's what makes a woman strong is having the strength of character to remain strong to her core values, stand for what she believes in, and stand for what she believes is right. The same way the hero, like Luke Skywalker, stands for what he believed in Return of the Jedi, where he believed that there was still good in his father, and he was willing to sacrifice even his own life to prove that point that there was still good in his father. And with the big problem with a lot of writers as it relates to women is that they're afraid to let these characters go through those hard times the way they let guys go through hard times. But I know for a fact as a writer that when you let these heroines go through those character transformation arcs, it can be very rewarding to the reader, and the reader can have a great reading experience because the feedback I get for many of the books that I write featuring heroines like Isis, Eastine, Matilda Crowley, or Colleen Anderson, and the Thetas is that women love those type of characters. They love seeing a full heroine's journey, and they don't want the heroine's journey impeded by writers who have issues trying to protect women or coming from a frame of reference where they're looking for a man to do things for them. If a heroine wants to be strong, they have to show their strength of character, their strength of discipline, their resolve, and when they show these intangibles of womanhood, this is what makes a character resonate with people. This is what makes women identify with the character. This is what makes men identify with the character. And this is what makes a character great for readers. They want to see that heroine's journey. And the big problem is most people in places like Hollywood and the publishing industry, they keep pulling punches as it relates to the heroine's journey. And because they pull punches and don't give us a full heroine's journey, this is why many of these attempts to give us so-called strong women fall flat because we see how weak these heroines are because a weak woman needs to get something from a man and a weak woman needs to be protected by a man. Strong women can work right at the side of a man without any bruises to their ego, and strong women, even if they do get those bruises to their ego, have the character to keep standing at the side of that man, like I wrote in Isis, Bride of Dracula, where Isis became the Bride of Dracula because she refused to listen to John Haynes, but then she had to deal with her ego, and again, that showed the strength of character to stand at his side, and that's what people want to see. They want to see strength but they don't need to see a woman so-called being strong by emasculating a man. They want to see her standing with that man, working with that man, and looking to have the strength of character to stand for herself and stand with those who have the same values that she does. The big problem, again, with these so-called strong heroines is that they're strong on the outside, weak on the inside, and they're weak on the inside because many of these writers are just too afraid to let these women go through the heroine's journey in the same way men go through the hero's journey. And because they're too afraid to let the woman go through the same experience that men go through, this is why their stories are just paper thin, and this is why most people don't really share their stories or resonate their stories, and this is why most of their stories oftentimes either fall flat in book sales or they flop at the box office. The only way to get to strong heroines is for writers and creators to have the strength of character, to let the woman go on a full heroine's journey, because when a woman goes on a full heroine's journey, the way Ripley did, the way Buffy did, and the way Xena did, that's when we get those great stories about heroines that become classics that endear from generation to generation. If you'd like to try some of my stories featuring strong heroines, like the Thetas, the Isis series, the E-Steam series, the Spinsterella trilogy, or All About Nikki, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. And if you want to help me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.